there, and welcome to Destination I Do's podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Stein. And if you want to know the questions you should ask your destination wedding planner to make sure you're hiring the right person, this is the episode for you. I have beautiful expert Taryn Stark Wyant. She is the founder and CEO of Taryn Stark Wyant Event Design. It's a premier luxury wedding planning firm specializing destination weddings worldwide. And Taryn and I have had the pleasure of traveling together, doing workshops together, doing sweepstakes together. And I'm just so excited to have you on the show, Taryn.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I feel so grateful to be here. It seems very long overdue.
I know. And I'm so excited about this subject because I think that a lot of couples, when they go into this process of trying to find the right person to plan their destination wedding, they don't even know where to start. They don't know what questions to even ask because they've never planned a wedding before. So they're like, well, what do I even ask this person? Basic things maybe, but I'd love to just kind of talk through what you feel are some really great questions for couples to make sure they're hiring the right person in the right destination. So listener, Taryn was nice enough to send some questions ahead of time. She is the expert. So I'm going to read the question and then we're going to talk about why that's an important question. So let's get started. So first question. So this is what she suggests you should ask your potential wedding planner. So for a destination planner, is it important to have experience planning destination weddings in the desired location? So why is that an important question to ask?
I love this question. This question is so important because with TSWED, we service weddings worldwide. And oftentimes we get clients that aren't quite sure where they want to be or where they want to go. And they will occasionally feel limited based on my personal experience. And that is a non-issue if you're working with an experienced professional. So for TSWED, we were founded in the state of Hawaii, which is obviously a very, very famous destination wedding state. And then now we've been servicing weddings throughout the world, whether it's the continental US, Canada, and Europe, all of that good stuff. And while we have a good amount of experience under our belts, it doesn't mean that we've been everywhere that we want to go. And so if I have a client that comes to me and says, hi, I'm really interested in Scotland. Can you please show me your portfolio about weddings in Scotland? I don't have that. I've never been to Scotland. I've never been to Scotland for pleasure, let alone for business. And yet I have absolutely no doubt that I would be able to curate a beautiful wedding in Scotland, hopefully at a castle for the perfect client.
Right.
And I think that really what matters more than show me your portfolio of this location is show me your portfolio of many locations across the world, or maybe just in your market.
Yeah.
Even in Hawaii, like we sometimes get people that want to go to a new property, like the Rosewood is a new location on the Big Island in Hawaii. Well, it's new this year. I haven't been there yet. But of course, I've done, 8 years exclusively in destination weddings throughout the Hawaiian Islands. And so I have no qualms about being able to service there. It's just about what is the experience that leads me to that level of capability.
Absolutely. And I think too, there is a difference where there are certain wedding planners that specifically only specialize in certain destinations. Like that is their comfort zone. That's where they have their business established. And it's not to say that like those people can't also plan in other destinations, but it is helpful to know if someone is able to do a wedding anywhere in the world or if it's just in this specialized location. So I think it's helpful to have that conversation because and I love that you're like, okay, don't show me your portfolio in Scotland, but show me your portfolio of all your weddings and like more what the design and experience is working with you.
Right. And like with the Scotland analogy, I would be able to pull out the workshop that we did in Ireland and the editorial shoots that we've done in Ireland. And obviously they're different countries, but they're also similar in terms of their customs and in terms of their location in the world. And so being able to ask your planner if who you're inquiring with, like, even if you haven't been to this location that I'm interested in, show me where you have been and tell me what you've learned from those experiences and what makes you, like you were saying, the expert
Mhm.
in this region or in this like stratosphere of destination weddings. And if they can answer that with confidence and poise, then I think that you're on the right track with a person, as
Yeah.
opposed to somebody who goes, oh, well, I'm based in California, but gosh, I'd love to go to Lake Como. So yeah, I can do that. And it's like, okay, but why? Tell me why. Show me
Right.
why. Show me why I should believe you. And I think that the portfolio scope is really important to look at.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Okay, question number two that you recommend people ask is what is, and this is really important. I feel like this is like maybe should have been question number one because, and I do think that there is, let's just call it what it is. There is a lot of distrust about pricing structure in our industry, not just with wedding planners, but with everything, with food and beverage, with rentals, full floral. Oh my gosh. I like the floral industry right now. Like, oi, it's so crazy. Like so let's talk about question number two is what is your pricing structure for destination weddings and is it different from local weddings you plan? So why is that an important thing?
Yes, I think this matters so much. I think this is probably the number one question that people are going to have for wedding planners in general, whether it's destination or not. And I am a really big proponent for full transparency in terms of our pricing structure.
Yeah.
Um, I think that we came from a time, I've been doing this for 15 years and I started in corporate. And back then, people were doing like shop calls and like pretending to be brides and asking their competition what their pricing structure is so they
Seriously? Oh my God.
match it. We were trained to do that. Like that was something we were trained and graded and gold on in corporate America. And
Yeah.
so this was what it was. It was very much, it felt like a cloak and dagger vibe. Like, oh, we got to figure out who the competition is in terms of pricing. And especially in wedding planning, because it's a service and not an item that you're receiving, I think that price matters so much less than connection.
Mm,
And so I think that for me, price transparency is great. I'm very happy with my competition to know my prices. I'm very happy to learn the prices of other people. And, generally speaking, across the market, wedding planners are going to promote that they do the same thing.
mhm.
There are different categories of wedding planner. You have, an event coordinator, an on-site, you've got a planner, you've got designers, you've got combination of those. But at the end of the day, if you're comparing apples to apples, pricing, I think, is pretty standard in the industry.
Yeah.
And so because of that, why aren't we being transparent on our websites? It should be right there. It should be easily accessible,
Right.
in my opinion, because it just helps the brides and the grooms and the couples as they're coming into this weird sphere where they've maybe never been, have some clarity and understanding.
Yeah.
So for me, my price structure is very competitive based on the market that I exist in. I am a wedding planner and design firm. And so we're kind of the like higher tier of the level of services that you can get. For us, our price structure is a 20% coordination fee on the subtotal of the event. You'll see that listed on our website, and you'll see that that's pretty competitive in our industry. The vast majority of planners and designers will charge that fee.
Yeah.
The only difference in terms of whether I'm servicing a local wedding or I'm servicing a destination wedding is going to be travel fees.
Mm,
So this is a big one for me because I have found that a lot of people balk at travel fees. And we work with destination vendors worldwide. And so I know that like some floral design teams, they will charge $75,000 for their whole team. That's a flat fee for their travel. Other people like myself are a lot more fluid because for me, it depends on where I'm going. I'm currently based in Raleigh, North Carolina. So if I'm going to Hawaii, my fees are going to be X. But if I'm going to New England, they're going to be Y. And those
right.
are very different fees because my airfare is dramatically more expensive going to Hawaii than going to Boston.
Yeah.
The amount of events that you're hosting on your wedding week, that is going to impact my travel days. Is it a 1 day wedding or is it a 5 day wedding week? That's going to impact my travel fees. And so for those, I think that it's just important for couples to know going in. If you're looking at a destination wedding, you're not just comparing the cost of service or the cost of goods. You're also needing to know so you don't get that sticker shock that like you're going to be paying for travel. You're going to be paying for this team to travel to the location. And so With that in mind, there are some vendors that are worth, in my opinion, that are financially worth the investment to bring in, whereas others, it's not going to be. If we're going to do a wedding in Lake Como, it makes a lot of sense to bring in a planner, a photographer, a DJ, all of whom speak your language, who are able to pre plan with you well in advance based on American customs. The people who are kind of going to be in your face should speak your language, in my opinion, not only throughout the planning process, but also on site. And they should understand the customs of your own culture. But something like a rental company, for example, why would we fly in a rental company? Like the costs are astronomical to ship in rentals.
Right.
Instead, use a local vendor. That's okay. The local vendor is going to be working with your planner anyways, and then you don't have to worry about travel fees.
Yeah. So for the next question,
Mhm.
this kind of ties back to the pricing structure. So
Mhm.
you do a percentage structure. Um, but then when it comes to that percentage, what you're offering. So do you offer full service planning, including design services? So you kind of said, yes, you guys do. But why is that an important question for someone to ask?
Oh gosh, this is a hot button for me because I manage the sales for TSWED, and so I am the first person that our inquiring clients are speaking with, and this is something that is an education moment in 90% of my discovery calls. And the thing is that in the wedding planning world, there are different categories of providers. So I usually think that you can separate this into four distinct categories. The first is you have an event manager who's oftentimes associated with a venue. I did this 15 years ago at one of the resorts in Hawaii. And what that means is that you are an employee of a property that is a venue for weddings.
Mhm.
Now, oftentimes you'll see, oh, I found this venue and it's great. And they have their own in house planner. Stop. That's not what that is. That's the colloquial verbiage for what that is, but that's not actually what that is. And I'm not saying that these people, that event managers can't be exquisite planners. They absolutely can. I was a great planner, but an event manager who is hired by a venue, their priorities lie with that venue. And so they are going to take what the venue says are the important things, and that is going to be usually what they receive bonuses on. It's usually what they're gold on. It's usually what they're reviewed upon. And so when I was working at a venue, for example, it was really important for me to drive room revenue, which is like your site rental fees, and food and beverage. So those were my top two goals, and I was bonused off of those. And so while I absolutely provided great service to my couples, you better believe I was saying, oh, yeah, like this upgraded champagne is the best thing you could possibly do for your wedding. It's going to be the maker of the event. It's not to say that I maybe didn't convince myself to believe that, but the priorities didn't lie with my couple. The priorities really, truly did lie with my family, which is appropriate, which meant that I had to prioritize what I was being gold on. So I
Mhm.
think it's really important to remember when you're dealing with an on site event manager, just know that they are hired by this venue for specific goals. And in order for them to succeed at their job, they need to meet those goals. So that matters.
Let me ask you this. So, because one of the things that you're hearing so much in the industry, and specifically like on some of these Reddit subreddits, the big budget brides on Reddit, like that's one of the ones that like has loads of different bits of information, some of which is absolutely spot on, and others is like, oh, I don't know. When you have someone where the goal is to upsell, because we're hearing, why are weddings so expensive? The second you say wedding, the price goes up. So do you feel like, how can people avoid that? Like where it is like, because you're saying, and you're, I appreciate the honesty because it's so refreshing, because I don't think like most people will be like, oh, no, 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 like my sole focus is on the couple and getting them their needs. But at the end of the day, if you are incentivized to upsell something, and you're paid on that. Are all event managers at venues, is it the same across the board, or is it like a per property kind of policy, if you will?
That's a great question. And Obviously, I don't know all event managers across the board, and so I can't speak to everybody's structure. What I can say is that I've been doing this for 15 years and I have never met an event manager hired by a venue that isn't incentivized by the goals of the venue.
Okay. Fair enough. So
No.
then and I think this is probably going to tie into your answer. How do couples then avoid maybe being upsold when it doesn't necessarily meet their own budget goals? Like, is this where the wedding planner comes in and says,
Yes.
okay, I have your budget in mind. So like, let's to kind of like steer this way a little bit on the conversation about, the full service planning versus and design services and
Right.
like, are those some of the things that a full service planner then is going to protect you from?
Correct. So a full service planner, in my opinion, is the solution to the event manager upsell.
Okay.
Um, a full service planner is somebody who is in your corner, right? So that person is representing the things that are truly important to you in terms of your priorities and your aesthetic, your investment level. That person is beholden to you and
Okay.
not to a venue. And
Yeah.
so for me, as a wedding planner, I love event planners. Event planners are fantastic, but I work really well with them because they can't really upsell me. I I don't get
You
upset.
used to do it. So you're like,
I'm
I
used
know
to
all the tricks.
it. While I respect them and want to, where we can both accommodate the priorities of the couple and the priorities of the venue reasonably, I think that's fantastic. But my people, I am in the corner of the couple, period. They are my priority. They are my number one. And so if the event manager tells me, going back to the champagne thing, like, whoa, they've really got to have champagne. It's important for the toast. And I go, no, my couple doesn't even drink. They prefer matcha green tea lattes. I don't need the champagne. Like, and it's not awkward for a planner to say that. And it's not awkward for a planner to like put her foot down with an event manager. Whereas it might be awkward if your event manager is your planner. You don't want to make your planner mad or make your planner frustrated with you because that's obviously posing a challenge for the relationship. So I think that event planners are absolutely the solution for kind of sidestepping that incentivization that venues give to their employees. And so that's a really important aspect. But I will say this, I've had one or two inquiries ask me like, well, but you're incentivized on the whole wedding because you make a percentage. And so
I
the more,
actually, I hate to say it, but I thought that. I literally
yeah,
like that thought went through my mind. But
correct.
I also know you and I know you're a really moral person. So you're not going to be like, cha-ching,
No, but that's it. That's
Yeah.
exactly the solution, though, is what you just said there. You know me, and so you know I wouldn't do that. So that's why it's so important to not only like really dive in. You know how we are. I really value authenticity and like a genuine relationship with my couples before I even sign them. And so if you as a couple are genuinely getting to know somebody and not just making a decision based on price point or galleries, like take it all into account, get to know them personally, look at their reviews, look at who they're partnering with in the industry. Like I think that you partnering with you, which I partner with you all the time, is a beautiful thing because you have a reputation of integrity. And therefore, whenever we partner on something, your beautiful reputation of integrity reflects well on me. And so I think it's really important that you really do get to know and trust your planner before you pick them
Yeah.
because that question exists, right? It's just like working with a real estate agent or a contractor for a house. I
Yeah.
compare myself to a contractor for a house all the time. Like when you hire a contractor to build a house, they're going to say, here's the plumber you need to use, here's the electrician you need to use. And they probably know a lot more about plumbing and electricity than you do. And yet you have to trust them. Like, are they picking the plumber that's more expensive so they make more money? Or do you really genuinely know your contractor and know he or she has your best interests at heart and trust that the people that they're recommending and the services that they're recommending are going to bring the house that you want to life within your budget? And if
Right.
you do that with your planner, then you won't feel that nervousness or that hesitancy of like, but aren't you just going to upsell me
Yeah.
for personal gain? And if you do feel that hesitancy, maybe you need to consider a different planner.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that trust is absolutely paramount when it comes to specifically your wedding planner because you're so right. You're the one who is suggesting and curating the creative partners list that these couples are working with. And if you, first of all, who's good in the industry, what red flags to look for if you're working in a new destination that maybe you haven't planned in before, the things to look for because you have 15 years of experience, not just on the venue side, but on the planning side. So exactly like, okay, if this is happening with this company, they don't pass the sniff test. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
all of those things. Now, let me ask you this. So, we've got the level of the event manager at the venue. We actually did an episode on the differences between, because I think a lot of times couples think, oh, yay, I have a wedding planner at my venue.
Built in. Yeah.
That is not their job description. Like they're
No.
there to book your date, get your F&B requirements. Like they're not there to like work with you on curating your creative partner list. They're not though that's not in their lane. So would you describe the different ones just for those who don't want to listen to another 30-minute episode? But I would recommend it. It's the one with Joanne Grigoli and it's great. Um, but like, let's talk about like what those different roles are.
Yeah. So
You wouldn't mind.
I think there are four. So I think that you have your on-site event manager, who we already discussed. Next up is a day of coordinator.
Mhm.
So oftentimes you'll have day of, sometimes you'll have month of, or like partial planning, this is called. I used to do this. I did this when I first started my business. I think that these people have your best interest at heart. I think that they take a tremendous quantity of clients, which impacts the overall investment and service that you're going to receive from that person. I hired this person for my own wedding because I was like, am a wedding planner. I don't need to hire a wedding planner.
Right.
Huge mistake. If I could redo it again, I would never do it the same way. But so I hired a day of, and she was fantastic. The mistake was mine. I was just overwhelmed with the whole process. And so if you are hiring a day of coordinator or a partial planner, you're going to be doing the vast majority of the heavy lifting yourself.
Yeah.
And then that person is then going to come in and go, great, now that you've situated all of the planning, the design, all of that good stuff, please give me the details, give me the contracts, and I will make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of a timeline. I will put together a diagram and then I'll execute it. So that person has a place, but it's very different from full service. I'm going to hold your hand throughout every step of the way planning.
Yeah.
That's wedding planning. So that's the third tier up. What we already discussed is wedding planning. The fourth tier, the top tier, in my opinion, is planning and design. And so a wedding planner is probably going to be able to curate a design for you. I don't want to call it a design, like an aesthetic for you. She's probably got Canva downloaded on her computer. She's probably intimately familiar with Pinterest. And, that can be enough. That can be great, especially if you are not somebody that cares as much about the aesthetic, but just are really invested in like having a smooth experience. Just a planner can be a great choice. However, if you're somebody that really cares about a highly tailored, well curated design, if you want to create like not just this event, but this whole experience, not only for yourselves, but also for your family members and your friends, you need a designer. You need somebody who is well-versed, well-trained, and educated in design and in design management. And so that is kind of the top tier. Not only are you getting that elevated planning service, but you're getting this whole different thing on the side, which is a design service.
Yeah. So, and to be clear too, you can hire outside design companies that all they do is design and then
Right.
work with your planner. So there are those options available as well where they do just design, zero planning. Do you ever, even though you offer the design services, do you ever have situations where you're brought on just to plan and not design?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I have ever accepted a job like that.
Okay.
And only because I don't think I've ever been presented with that kind of an experience with that kind of a client where they have already found a sensational designer, like a Joy Proctor level designer, where they're like,
Yeah.
"Hi, I'm in love with Joy. I've already hired her, but we want somebody to come in and plan."
Mhm.
I would absolutely jump on board with that. That wouldn't be a problem for me.
Yeah.
That would be a privilege. I
Yeah.
would consider that a wonderful learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, what I have been presented with and what I have graciously declined is if and when a bride, I had this happen once. This was a challenging moment for me. I had a high profile bride who was in the world of sports. And her job with this particular sports team was to be their event manager. She was their event planner. And so she came to me and she said, I am well versed in event planning and in event design. I have fully curated the design for my affair. And I have vendors with whom I'm really closely partnered, but I don't want to do the work. I just wanted to design it. I want you to do the work. Would you do that? And I said, yes. I will never do that again. It was a challenge every
Yeah.
step of the way. Firstly, because she wasn't a wedding designer. A
Mm.
wedding designer is a special brand of beast, and God love them. They are exquisite and amazing at what they do, and their job is very, very different than
Mhm.
being any other kind of designer. I think it's different than being an interior designer. My
Oh
mom,
yeah.
interior designer for multi-billion-dollar clients, like just amazing. She does a beautiful job. We've had, event designers, even corporate event designers is what my former bride did. Fashion design, all very important, very applicable to wedding design. If you're not taking cues from fashion and interior design in your wedding design, then you're not a very good designer, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
they're just different beasts, and they
Yeah.
require a different level of experience and education.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really a challenging partnership to move through. And I don't think I'd want to put my client in that position again, and I wouldn't want to put myself in that position
Isn't
again.
it funny? Like the things that shape our businesses are usually like, oopsies, you know what I mean? Like this, it seemed like a great idea, and then you take it on, and then you're like, okay, like this is how we evolve and grow
Mhm.
as like people, first of all, but also business owners. There's been so many times at Destination I Do where something seemed like an amazing opportunity or idea. And then I jump in head first and then literally like break my neck. You know what I mean? And
Correct.
it has happened. But then it's like you don't unlearn that lesson. Like that lesson
Correct.
is forever and it probably is going to impact policies at your company and all sorts of things. So I kind of love that you shared an oopsie story because
But
that
the good
happens. And it
news,
happens to like legitimate people who really know their way around things. Sometimes you're like, yeah, it's an opportunity. Let's see where this goes. And
and then you
sometimes it
pop.
goes great and you keep doing it. It's a wonderful like expansion of your business, or other times it's like, yeah, no, not doing that again.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the next question, number 4. This is when you suggest couples ask, which is, what is your backup plan for unexpected challenges?
Yes, great question. We get this question all the time, and the answer is that you need to understand that there will always be challenges at the wedding. Period. No matter what. I've never once ever executed a flawless wedding. It doesn't exist. It
No,
doesn't exist. However, I can guarantee you that 90% of my clients think that theirs was the one. And it's not true. The fact of the matter is that it's really important, in my opinion, that you choose a planning firm, especially depending on the location that you choose, but that you choose a planning firm that is really, really, really experienced in those scenarios. So, for example, I say the location that you choose because I'm thinking of Hawaii. The vast majority of weddings in Hawaii are outdoors. Ceremony, cocktail, dinner, reception, they're all outside. You are in a tropical environment, and there are things that come along with being in a tropical environment that one might not consider, like passing rain showers or wind, trade winds, Kona winds, the ocean waves splashing and the trajectory by which they can hit certain areas. And so if you're picking a planner that has absolutely no experience, if you're getting married in Hawaii, you're picking a planner that has no experience in Hawaii, but is a great, amazing planner in New York City who does a lot of gorgeous restaurant events and ballroom events. You have a planner that isn't as prepared for the unexpected as you would have elsewhere.
yeah.
And so I think that that's really important. You can't really, there's not a firm answer to, well, what do you do when the unexpected happens? Because, well, what is the unexpected? What
Right.
is the
It's
crazy thing that's about
unexpected.
to happen?
Like
Like,
by
well, we don't
definition, you
know.
don't know what it's going to be.
So you got to pick someone who's quick on their feet, who's familiar, not just necessarily with that particular location, but like that type of event. So if somebody picks a California based planner for a Hawaii wedding, that person is probably a lot more prepared than a New York based planner, unless said New York based planner has sought experiences in those areas and has experiences in those areas under their belt.
Yeah.
So I think that looking at the portfolio and asking about the portfolio and how the planner can expect to manage unexpected things in your location matters greatly.
So what you're saying is if a planner has restaurant or ballroom experience, and they might be so experienced in that,
The best.
but they don't have necessarily tropical, beach wedding experience. Those are the types of planners that might not be the right fit for you. But they could be a New York planner that plans weddings in Bermuda or somewhere in the Caribbean or Mexico or Hawaii or Fiji or I could name 600 different tropical locations and they have that experience. That would be the right fit.
Exactly. And
Okay.
it's also not to say that like a planner can't garner that experience.
Right.
So when we first decided we wanted to break into the European market, we had actually booked our first wedding in Lake Como. We were so excited, and yet we had not done one wedding in Europe. We never done a wedding in Europe. I traveled to Europe a lot, but I'd never done a wedding. And I looked at my creative director, Danny, and I said, oh my, okay, we can't do this. Like it would be such a disservice to our client to have theirs be the first event, the first wedding event we've ever done in Europe, because so much could go wrong. And
Mhm.
so what ended up happening is we put together a trip 4 months before that wedding event in Lake Como, and we decided to curate 2 editorial shoots, one in France and one in Italy. And oh my gosh, I am so grateful that we did, because everything that could have gone wrong on those editorials
Did.
just went wrong. It was
Yeah.
such a disaster, and God bless you, you actually published one of them. So the imagery turned out great, but my gosh, we learned such a tremendous amount from going and getting that experience. Even though it was in an editorial setting, it was still a tremendous amount of experience and learning that we garnered, so that when we did end up going later that year to Lake Como, we knew like we are not checking anything to do with this wedding. We're not checking linen. We're not checking calligraphy. We're not, because bags get lost.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things that went wrong. Like, so
Yeah.
we shipped everything in advance, and we used a luggage service, and we learned so much, and so we were able to service that client really well in an area that was previously very unfamiliar to us.
Yeah. Which honestly, I think experience, it really just boils down to that. I mean, I see a lot of, and I know you do too, Taryn. I think we've even talked about this. There's a lot out there on Instagram and even TikTok and different social media platforms where they have these beautiful images and it looks like their portfolio is just stunning. And then when you go to look at how many years they've been in business, you really kind of can't tell. And in reality, some of those images maybe were just, either taken from someone else. Like you have to be really careful to know who you're working with, right? Like this is one of the most important decisions you're going to make outside of who you've decided your partner is going to be, is who is your wedding planner going to be? Because that can really kind of, make or break your experience. So
Yeah.
let's move on for a second, and then I'm going to take a commercial break, but let's move on to travel logistics. So one of the questions you suggested people ask is, do you handle travel logistics? I have so many opinions about this and I'm really
I'm
excited.
sure you do.
Yes, I do. And if not, do you have someone you work with that you trust?
I love this question. This is a question that, in my opinion, is not asked enough.
I agree.
People
Yes.
don't think of this. They don't think about this when doing destination wedding planning in general. And what I will say is, we have a travel planner that is a member of our team at TSWED. She is sensational. Her name is Britta. Her business is Luxury Travel by Britta. You do not have to hire TSWED to hire Britta, but you should hire Britta.
Is
Uh,
amazing.
she's amazing, and she has really completely transformed my opinion on having a travel planner involvement. She is priceless. She's absolutely priceless. She's included in the TSWED experience, which is really lovely. And so now all of our clients really get to appreciate this up-leveled, elevated experience. but having somebody that is your point of contact for all things travel not related to the wedding events. Because that's not what I do. I'm not a travel planner, I'm a wedding planner. And so when you have questions about hotel room blocks and, Haven accommodations and transportation, and well, all my guests want to do something like after the wedding, and what events could we do for that, like in terms of a tour or a trip or things of that nature. I I know just as well as you do how to type that into Google, and we all know what a disaster that can be.
Yeah.
So Britta or any travel planner really does serve, again, as somebody in your corner who understands your priorities and your investment level and the things that matter most to your group. And they're the person that brings that to life in a reasonable and easy way, because this doesn't have to be hard. It
No.
doesn't have to be hard. It can be fun and enjoyable and wonderful.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it matters too, especially when doing a destination wedding. The last thing you want, and what will inevitably happen if you don't have a travel planner, is you will have every single one of your guests reaching out to you and saying, what airport are you flying into? What do you know if I can, how do I get a taxi, or is there a shuttle, or what time is check-in again? And do I have two beds in my room or one king? And no, 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 no.
Yeah.
You should not be fielding these questions on your wedding week. That shouldn't be
No.
happening. It
Oh my gosh.
completely devastates the experience.
Yeah.
If you have a travel planner, not only do you have to say, oh, ask Britta, here's a contact, but you hopefully, if she's doing a great job, you have a wedding website, you have a travel app that everybody has received in advance, and she's able to reach out to everybody well in advance to their direct phones with the timeline, with the information. And then if and when they have questions, they go to Britta,
Yeah.
and you just get to enjoy your moment.
It's so true. And having a destination wedding myself, I decided almost like out of research and curiosity, because I got married. I started Destination I Do in 2004, but then I got married in 2005 and did a destination wedding. So my poor fiance, like he didn't become my fiance. Like I started a wedding magazine. He's like, well, now I better get off my butt and ask her, because we were just dating when I started this. And out of curiosity, I chose deliberately not to hire either
Mhm.
a travel coordinator, concierge, planner, whatever you want to call them, or a wedding planner. Because I really wanted to see like how stressful is this if you do it on your own. And let me
Mhm.
just tell you,
I don't
it
know.
is really stressful. It is like I had people calling me like the second they got the save the dates with 50,000 questions about, where to stay and how they're going to get there, and it was I would say like the planning was definitely stressful, but the travel part of things was where I really got almost suffocated at points, because everyone had direct line, and I'm also one of those people who, like, if you ask me to help you, I will help you even if
It's
it's to my
far.
own detriment
It's
sometimes.
far.
Yep. And I wouldn't call myself a people pleaser necessarily, but I definitely have, like, if someone comes to me and says I need your help, like, I literally will drop everything to help you. And so that became a major problem. And, thank God that even back then they had wedding websites. I know it's been a minute. I know I'm a little old as a destination bride, but like we did have a wedding website, and thank God for that, because I just started having to like protect myself and put some boundaries together and be like, okay, here is the wedding website. Like this is what will tell you where the room blocks are. I had to do all the room blocks myself. I had to call, every different place to try and figure out, and then try and understand attrition and all these different things that are, when you've never done it before. Like, and I did this to find out, like, are these people really worth the additional expense, or, just to bring onto your creative team? Yes, they are. I can say that without a doubt. They are absolutely worth their weight in gold. So, yeah, I love what you're saying, and I could not agree more. So, we are going to take a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we are going to finish the rest of our questions that you absolutely need to ask as you're hiring your wedding planner. So, hang on, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the perfect vendors to help you perfect your wedding away? Well, look no further than DestinationIDo.com. From our homepage, simply click Find a Vendor. choose your vendor type, type in your destination, and hit go. From there, you can view the vendors available to you, learn a little bit more about them, view their past work, or even go directly to their website. So you can take the guesswork out of finding your perfect vendors. Go to destinationIdo.com/vendors.
We are back with Taryn Stark Wyant, and we are talking all about the different questions you need to ask when you're hiring your destination wedding planner. So, number 6, this is what you suggest people ask, Taryn, and that is, what kind of design and or styling services do you provide? Why is that important?
This is so important, and it kind of relates to one of the questions that was asked earlier when we were discussing the difference between a planner and a planner/designer. And so there are a lot of programs out there, especially now with AI, which is kind of, ever morphing in the wedding planning world. But there are a lot of planners out there that have the capability to cast a vision for your event. And this can be sufficient. This can be perfectly sufficient for a lot of couples. And so if you're just looking for someone to give you an idea of like, this is what your bridal bouquet can look like, and this is what your table linen can look like with the color of plates that we like, and, kind of the more basic information, there are great programs out there that a lot of planners can and are using, whether it's through Aisle Planner or Canva. Some even do like PowerPoint. Like, those can be great resources, just like Pinterest is a great resource for you. However, that is very, very different than hosting an event design team. So with design, I can at least speak to how we choose to approach the design process. So I and my creative director, Danny, partner together in design. Danny owns Sabag Design Studios, and so she is absolutely an exquisite event designer. And the way that we approach the design process is not just based on what colors do you like and what rentals are available. The first thing we do is a deep dive into who you guys are as a couple, what is important to you and to your relationship, what is important to your family members, what culture do you come from, what cultural nuances are important to include in your experience for the wedding day and then the wedding week as a whole. And then how do we then take all of that fun and glorious information, combine it with the aesthetic of your venue and the price point of your investment, and cast the vision for what your full experience can be like. So for example, we just finished up a wedding week on Kauai and had the sweetest couple of all time, best ever. She is from China, and his mom is from Japan, and they both live in the continental US. And so they decided to host their wedding on the island of Kauai, because it was like the halfway point for all of the families. Mm-hmm. They came to us, and of course they said, oh, we like these colors and we want like a softer palette, and here's our cultural nuances, and no, we don't want a tea ceremony, things of that nature. Great. We then took that and created this wedding week that was absolutely amazing. And obviously I'm wildly biased, and so if you don't think it's amazing, please don't DM me.
I kind of watched it all unfold on Instagram, and I would agree. I was like dying over the details. So beautiful. I mean, so beautiful.
It was amazing. And what we did was we really focused on the cultural intentionality throughout the entirety of it. And so the welcome event, which was a private dinner, was hosted as a full traditional Hawaiian luau. And so we had handmade plates with Hawaiian dancers on them. We had a private chef come in. It was only 11 people, so it was very intimate, and do a full, like, not a luau style menu, which you would get at like, a hotel luau with neon lights and flashing skirts. Like, it was a very traditional, authentic Hawaiian meal. We did a Hawaiian centerpiece that was full of local flora and fauna, and it was just so beautiful. And then the next day was their formal welcome dinner. That was all China. We had a traditional Chinese musician come in. We had a wall, a huge, beautiful red wall, because red is the color of celebration in China, that had just gorgeous white Chinese lanterns all over it. We had, traditional Chinese chopsticks, which are different than Japanese chopsticks, the things that you learn. So it was all China, and it was everything about just to honor the bride's family. The next day was Japan, and everything we did was in Japanese theme, and we had teppanyaki, and we had, just all the dishware that you get at a traditional Japanese meal. And then the final day was the culmination of all of them. And so we combined all three cultures because this was the first time that their families had met. And so we wanted to really honor the location they chose, the bride's family, the groom's family, and then like this combination. And so that's very different. That whole concept, curation, and all of the specific details that went into that mattered so tremendously, not only to the couple, but to each of their attendees. Like the reactions we got from the family were the most beautiful, priceless things I could ever describe. Like they were all so touched by the intentionality. And so hopefully I've done a good job of describing like that's a very different experience that we were able to provide than just providing a pretty setting.
Yeah. And like a specific color palette. Like that's very limited to what you're describing. You're literally taking like their values and their traditions and the things that are making, the two become one. And it sounds like there's just a lot of thought and mindfulness that goes into that kind of design versus let's make sure we get the color of your linen correct. Like that is, that's very, very different. Okay. Exactly. So let's talk about communication for a second, which is so important when we're talking about destination weddings, oftentimes because you're dealing with potentially different languages or different cultures or different kind of vibes, if you will, or just like the hustle and bustle of life may be different working in one destination versus another. So the question you suggest couples ask is, how do you manage communication and planning from a distance? And what is the planning process / timeline?
Yes. Oh, that's a big question. That could take up the rest of the whole podcast.
I know. We got some heavy hitters here. I apologize. We're
no. I'll just focus on answering about communication. And so if you're working with a wedding planner, I'm assuming that you're working with a destination wedding planner. So if you're working with a destination wedding planner, in terms of communication, the way that we approach the communication process with our clients is that we are basically available at all times. We do our very best to communicate either via Zoom or Google Meet, over the phone, or via email. Sometimes we'll we're obviously stalking you on the Instagram. And so sometimes we'll, shoot you an Instagram inspo and say, oh my gosh, do you love this? Because I love this. I'm thinking of you. But if and when we do that, I'll truly screenshot it and then copy and paste it into an email and just say, hey, wanted to follow up on the below, because it's really important to make sure that we are having really comprehensive notes of everything that we discussed. Same with text messages. Like certainly we text on site. That's a no-brainer for us. But in advance of the wedding, if I start texting with a bride, I'll screenshot the conversations for two reasons. One, so that I don't forget what we discussed when I was, in the grocery store with my two children going, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. This would be a great idea. And then I forget everything immediately upon putting my phone away.
You're only human.
I'm only human. So I don't want to forget, but also I don't want you to forget. Yeah. As my client, I want to make sure you remember and you really do still think that fleeting thought was a great idea and something we want to incorporate. So for us, we communicate really regularly with our clients, and we find it to be of the utmost importance, even if there's not really a lot to say. Sometimes I'll just do a check-in with my bride and say, hey, I know you felt stressed last week. I just want to let you know, still waiting to hear back from the floral designer on the third round. But as soon as I get it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And then that bride gets to go, oh, Taryn's got it. Thank God.
And I think that establishes too, like, because I think what happens, and I hear this a lot, is where like you guys oftentimes, just because you're not telling them that you're working on it, you are working on it, right? And so I think it's important to have those little check-ins, because I think couples are just like, they're sometimes no news to them is not good news. And they're like, well, is this person, are they working on 20 other weddings? And mine is like, I'm missing out on potential, orders or this or that. And so the fact that you take the time and are thoughtful in the sense that you're like, hey, I'm going to touch base with you, even if I have no news,
right?
That I'm working to get you news. Like that is an important thing. And I think a lot of couples communication, like some of them, it depends on the couple, but like some are totally hands off and like ultimate trust. And they're like, I just want to show up and be a guest at my wedding. You do the rest. I don't care. Those are probably the best clients
I was
ever.
going to say, that's the perfect couple.
That's the perfect couple. And then there's other people that are like in the weeds and like sending you, one Pinterest board and you think you're settled on the design and they're like, just kidding. Now I want this. And you're like, So the fact that you give that communication and that check-in has got to be really reassuring to a lot of your couples. It would be to me. I'm kind of in between where it's like I would trust the person that I'm hiring to just do their job, but I also have opinions about
Yes.
things. So um let's talk for a second about if you're on site versus being off site. Would you ever be off site for a wedding? So the question is, will you be on site for the wedding and what kind of team do you have?
Yes. So with TSWED, you are always going to get myself and my creative director, Danny, on site, no matter what. I don't care if you are an elopement and your vendors
Really?
outnumber.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, this sweet wedding on Kauai that I was just telling you about, they, like I said, they only had 12 people total. And oftentimes the number of vendors on site outnumbered the wedding group.
Wow.
That was actually something we were really intentional about and specific about because we never wanted them to feel that way. And so we had like shifts. It was like, you can't be outside right now. You gotta take a water break because there's already 5 vendors out there. And so you gotta wait your turn. But yeah, so we are always on site no matter what. We also have a team that comes on site with us. Depending on the size and the scope of the travel, we will, of course, bring Britta with us as our on-site travel planner, which is really helpful,
Yeah.
especially for larger groups. And then we have who we call our Swiss Army knife. His name is Miles, and he's amazing. He does everything that we need him to do. Then,
Love it.
he travels with like this huge suitcase just of tools because Lord knows what we're going to come up with on site and say, hey, can you build this?
Wow. That's very
Yes.
cool.
He's amazing. But then we'll also hire just like on-site day of assists, just depending on the event itself. And so you're always going to have a team. You're always going to have a tremendous amount of support. You're never going to be looking for like a planner or a person that can help you. If you're working with TSWED, we're always going to be very, very, very present. I think that one thing is really important when you're considering a planner is if they do have a team, and if they don't, what are their plans if and when you need a team? So sometimes at the beginning of the planning process, you might say, oh yeah, like I only need the wedding planner. Like I don't need anyone else. That's great. But then you get going, you get rolling, and all of a sudden your guest count goes up and up and up, and you've added this really interesting element, and you've added that really interesting element. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, turns out we're going to need somebody in with the groom and the groomsmen at this time, and somebody in with the bride and the bridesmaids at this time, and somebody else over there managing the ceremony setup. So who are you going to bring? And if your planner's like, oh, well, let me reach out to a friend, or maybe I can bring, that could be challenging.
Yeah.
So making sure that your planner has a plan, if they don't already have a team, is also a really good thing to ask.
Yeah. I love that. That's so brilliant. And honestly, I think too, there's a lot of, stuff happens. Sometimes people get sick, and if they don't have, one of their team members isn't available. Those things that's just life that happens. And the fact that, you and Danny both work as a team, you have worked as a team for a very long time. So you know each other's like ins and outs. Like it is helpful that you have like a truly established professional group that is, so if like one of you does get sick or like some tragedy strikes your own household or whatever, like what the other person, their directives would be. So that's super helpful to know, and definitely something for couples to look for when they are, trying to hire their wedding planners. Okay. So this is the last question. This is one that you suggest couples ask, and that is, can you share examples of previous weddings you've planned?
Oh.
So what do you mean by that? Like, is it, because we talked about portfolio before, and it's like, is it just based on aesthetics? What's the goal of that question exactly?
Oh, great. Oh, I love this. So I think that it's really important to ask this question kind of towards the end of your conversation, because by the end of your conversation with your planner or the planner that you're considering, they should have a pretty clear understanding of your priorities, of your pain points, things that you're worried about, things that make you nervous. They should have a clear understanding, not only of your aesthetic, like visually, but like of who you are as a couple and the things that matter most to you. And this is the kind of question that really is like a litmus test. It can be a litmus test to whether or not that planner was actually paying attention and really does value your personal nuances. So, for instance, if I'm talking to a couple, I'll give you a real example. I was talking to a couple just a week ago, and they had a planner, and they had hired a planner in country for a wedding in Lake Como, and they were having a really hard time. The person was not responsive. They were losing out on vendors that they wanted to book because that person wasn't responsive. And they were really just a bundle of nerves and stress. Now, if and when they had asked me, can you please tell me about, one or two weddings in the past that you've planned that you think would be of interest to us? I could have answered that one of two ways. I could have either gone, oh my gosh, yes, let me tell you about this wedding that I just had published in Destination I Do. And it was exquisite. The wedding group was amazing, the best couple of all time from start to finish. Everything was flawless and blah, 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 blah. Great. That's great. That speaks well to my business. It speaks well to my ability to produce a beautiful event with happy clients, and that matters. I did not tell them about that wedding. Instead, I said, well, yes, let me tell you about this wedding. I recently did a wedding at a hotel where they had partnered with the event manager. And 4 months before their wedding, they realized that the events manager had been fired and did not leave any notes on their wedding.
Oh no.
And so I took over that wedding. And I picked the pieces up with that couple. I scheduled weekly calls with them. I prioritized their vendor selection above everything else. And guess what? They had the best experience of their life. I'm going to send you the review that they wrote about me. And I'm going to shoot you over the publication, because not only was it an amazing experience, but also it got picked up by this publication. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I'm speaking to my clients' pain points. Yeah. I'm telling them, I heard what you said. I heard that you've had a really hard time. And not only was I listening, not only am I applying it, but also I have experience here. I'm the expert to be the one that can fix this for you, right, or that can turn this around for you, which for that particular couple is what they needed. But in the same way, if you have somebody who says, I want a really small gathering of 11 people, and I go, great, let me tell you about this wedding of 300 that I just did in Newport. I, as a planner, I'm doing a great job of showing that I genuinely heard and care about you, and that I am equipped and am the expert to provide what you need from me.
Well, and honestly, if you had said couple who wants 12 people, here's a wedding of 300, they may also feel subconsciously you're trying to push them to have a bigger group of people. So I absolutely think that's like, for you to actively listen and hear the challenges, the pain points, the things that so these are all, listener, this is all really good advice, because if you are hearing that, that they're giving only like the best and not necessarily like some couples who showed up with problems already happening, and then that individual shows you how they were able to overcome those challenges, like this is just good meaty stuff, Taryn. I love it. I love it. Okay, last thing. Number 10 is technically an add-on question. And I already know the answer to this because we are a part of it, but I'd love to hear what exciting news you have to share.
Yes. So TSWED, in partnership with the unbelievably talented Destination I Do team, is going to be launching a very special surprise. So keep an eye out on all of our Instagrams, all of our socials. This coming Valentine's Day, we've got a really exciting opportunity for a newly engaged couple that's looking to get married in 2025. I'm not going to spill the beans here, but I will say that we have a really great opportunity, whether you're looking at a small elopement or a larger destination affair. We have got something planned and an opportunity available for you that we are excited to share and can't wait to spill more about soon.
Yes, it's all very secretive right now, but all will be revealed. So just keep looking at socials and we'll be announcing, and I can't wait. It's so, so exciting. So thank you so much, Taryn. This has been incredibly helpful.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for having me. I just love chatting with you. Like we were saying earlier, I feel like I could chat with you for days and days and days. So this is a privilege.
Oh, it's my privilege, truly. Listener, if you want to connect with Taryn, you can reach out to her on Instagram. All her socials are at Taryn Stark Wyant, and this will all be in your show notes, so don't worry. And if you want to visit her website, it's TarynStarkWyant.com. And if you want to connect with us, follow us, rate this podcast, we would be eternally grateful. Also, subscribe. That's awesome because then you won't miss a single episode. You can reach us on social at Destination I Do. That's where you'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, all the things. And then destinationido.com is our website. If you have ideas for future shows or feedback you'd love to give us, our email inbox is always open, info@destinationido.com. Anyway, this is it for this show, but thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.